we're live. I think we just successfully made the jump to hyperspace and we still have everyone with us. Maybe. You guys on the Skype call want to say anything, or am I going to do this by myself the whole night?
I'm not sure that we're on yet.
Oh, we definitely are.
Yeah, are we here?
I hear you.
Okay, well,
There we go. All right,
then we're here.
Yeah, I had a
I hear
live thing for a little bit.
Yeah. All right, you guys can hear a couple other dudes in the background, right? Let's do a quick sound check just to make sure, because I just want to make sure our audio is working before we start. Okay. All right, well, good evening, everyone. Happy Saturday, and welcome in to our next installment in the weekly Roadway Whiz webinar series. Before I introduce our panel tonight, I would just like to take a second to thank all of you for spending part of your Saturday with us. I know you don't have a whole heck of a lot of choices these days, but we do really appreciate the fact that you are... What the hell is this shit? We really do appreciate that you're willing to spend some time with us on Saturday night, and really looking forward to bringing this presentation to you. Tonight, we're going to focus on the El Paso, Texas metropolitan area, and this is an area that really is a place that hasn't been explored all that much in the road enthusiast hobby. So my trip out there in February really gave me a chance to see a lot of things that not that many people in the hobby have seen themselves. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this and getting to talk about it with all of you. So let's introduce the panel. Live from the Hudson Valley of New York, this is yours truly, Roadway Whiz. I'm also joined by Steve.
Yo.
From New Jersey, the founder of alpsroads.net. You know him, you love him. And I'm pleased to introduce, making his debut appearance on a live stream here on the channel. I could list his full name for you, but I won't because no one ever calls him by his full name. He is known simply on the forum and elsewhere as Corco.
Good morning, or afternoon. How are you folks doing?
We're doing great over here. Corco, you're joining us from where exactly?
Beautiful Boise, Idaho.
Boise, Idaho. Fantastic.
Is there anything there that you would say besides potatoes?
No. We have potatoes. There might be a mountain if you know where to look. There might be a bunch of mountains. Idaho may or may not have more wilderness area than any state but Alaska. But we don't tell people that, so I won't elaborate further.
Is that right? Like per capita?
Yes. Most of Idaho is federally protected wilderness, not potatoes. But we don't talk about the good parts of Idaho to the public.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got our panel introduced, and we've got our folks in the live chat. If you have questions for either of our panel members or myself, or anything you would like us to bring up as we go through tonight's presentation, feel free to chime in the chat, and I will do the best I can to keep up with you guys. All right? So let's first do some channel announcements real quick. Sorry, I gotta mute my phone here. YouTube uploads. this week was very significant because we started uploading stuff from the Southwest this week. It started on April 1st. I've already gone through and uploaded all the stuff that you will see in the immediate future from the state of New Mexico. And we are working through US 163 as we speak, I think. So we'll continue with that. That's Utah stuff, so we'll finish up Utah early next week. We'll get into Nevada starting on April 10th. So if you remember last week when we did the... actually, this is a good time to do the pen real quick. So we are here tonight. It's April 4th. So you can see what we've got coming up in the next several weeks here. Someone was saying that they couldn't read this. I don't know why. It's not that hard to read. But anyway, so you guys can see every Saturday we'll have something through the middle of May, and we'll extend it as we see fit in the future. So we got through I-17. Last week we did the Vegas webinar. And if you guys attended that and you got to see all the stuff that we had to talk about there, you'll be well prepared for all the videos in Nevada that will come out on a daily basis starting on April 10th. Okay? So, that's that. Also, I want to thank all my viewers from the course of this week. It was another very successful week in the Coronavirus and the Commute Daily Afternoon Drive stream. It was actually the most viewed week in that series so far to date, which is actually significant considering that I am not commuting to New York City anymore. I'm actually commuting up into the Albany area. But you viewers have chosen to stick with it, and in spite of the signal reception problems that we had pretty routinely on certain days, you guys chose to stick with it. So I want to take a second to thank all you guys for doing that. And I'm going to try to make the reception a lot better next week. We'll see. I won't make you any promises just yet. All right. I think probably the thing to do as we get started is to give you guys a general overview of El Paso as a whole. So this is the metro area in the far west end of Texas. It was first settled in the late 1600s, incorporated as a city in 1873. It is the largest municipality on the U.S.-Mexico border. It has a city population of just under 700,000. The metro population is around 1 million. One of the things that you'll notice...
With another million just across the border.
Over in Mexico, you mean?
Yep.
Is that is that city? How do you pronounce that city's name, by the way? Because I still can't figure that out.
Juarez.
Is it just Juarez? Okay. So that's another city of 1 million just across the border, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't cross into Mexico on this trip. But I understand that, yeah, that's another sizable city over there. But one of the things you'll notice when you travel through El Paso is the rather large U.S. military presence. It is one of the major homes of our armed forces, with the Fort Bliss military reservation being central. And we'll talk more about that as we go through a couple of the highways we're going to profile tonight. Also, if you're in the news, because as I said, El Paso is the largest single municipality on the American side of the Mexican border. It is often a focus point or hotspot for the American immigration debate. Now, we're not going to get into the political stuff tonight, but if you hear stuff in the news from time to time about immigration and everybody's position on it, everybody seems to have one. Chances are they're stemming from a story that is rooted somewhere in the El Paso area. So, there's that. let's go through a quick historic map summary here. This is a map. Let me get rid of this. This is a map from the mid-60s. We see here that I-10 is largely a dotted line through downtown. It has started to take shape east of town. So I-10 is kind of running a path like this as it exits town towards New Mexico. That's this dotted line here. The Cordova bridges are in place down at the bottom. This is the jumping off point for Interstate 110, which will eventually be built later. You can see on maps today that it takes a path sort of like this and then exits to the northeast as US 54. Also down here along the Rio Grande, not yet constructed but to be built in future years, is the Chavez Border Highway, which comes from the southeast. And then the most recent addition, of course, being the Border West Expressway, which continues that route along the river and parallels I-10 for a short distance before merging in northwest of town.
I'm curious what that little piece of Mexico is doing across the border there. Have you looked into that?
I have not. My eye was drawn to this caption right here. I don't know if you can see that.
So what year is this map? Sorry.
I want to say it was 65.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes, apparently that
So
was
it looks like in 64 that actually already. So yeah, what Doug just said, in 63 or 64 they did a big border redrawing along the Rio Grande there, and the U.S. got that island, and then there was a city over on the Mexican side that was somehow in the United States that went back to Mexico, and they cleaned up the border a bit.
So they did like a territory swap? Is that what happened?
Yeah. Just cleaned up the border a little bit. Got everything on the correct side of the Rio Grande. That's basically what happened. Yep.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't even notice that little border thing there, but yeah, that is a little weird. But yeah, I guess they rectified it around the time that this map was printed. So it's still showing the original boundary. Okay.
Now, the interesting implication of that is what would now be international bridges across the Rio Grande at that point were not. And the border was on our side of the river.
Yeah, the Cordova Bridge didn't cross the border back then, which is what you can see right here, right? Because the border is still doing this goofy stuff up here. But yeah, that's neat. I never knew about that. I never thought to ask around about what that was all about. So the fully built out system of highways can be seen here mostly. I mean, they still don't want to fully acknowledge that the Border West Expressway exists, but it does something like this. Actually, no, it's more like coming up like this before it ties in with I-10 up here. So this section of highway is pretty new. It opened in October of 2019. So it hasn't fully yet made its way onto maps. But up here you can see I-10 comes in really from the north out of New Mexico and then comes through town and then it exits to the southeast. The 375, which is it's more or less the beltway around El Paso, is up in here and then comes down and then around and then through town and then along the Border West corridor And then if you want to complete the Beltway, you can follow I-10 for a few miles. And that's basically what we've got. All right, so that's a basic overview for you. All right, let's get into these. So, as I mentioned, I-10 comes in from New Mexico, Arizona, and exits towards the east, towards San Antonio. It's signed as an east-west freeway. I guess on the whole it runs east-west through the metro area. It is a component of the much larger transcontinental route from Los Angeles to Jacksonville, and it spends a little bit of its time here in far western Texas in the El Paso area. And then we have pictures here. This is eastbound at the split for the border west, and then this is westbound approaching 54, a few miles east of downtown. And then again we have another interchange with 375. This is the southeastern junction, about 15 miles from downtown. Notice the large complex of flyover ramps in this upper left photo, and on the lower right we have eastbound 10 exiting downtown, approaching the split for 54 Patriot Freeway. See that? Nice and simple, right? All right, 110. Now you notice in the last slide, I had a picture at US 54. Now this is also the same location where you would pick up Interstate 110. However, you will not find any 110 shields along I-10 at all. It is only signed in a couple of places, as we'll see in the pictures that I've got coming here. But this is basically a short connector to link I-10 and the Patriot Freeway with one of the main bridges to Mexico. The Bridge of the Americas is one of its titles. It's also known as the Cordova Bridge, as seen on this sign here. I-110 is listed at about 9/10 of a mile in total length, making it the shortest signed interstate in the United States. So if you blink, you'll miss it. And I mentioned this is one of the only places where you'll see 110 signed on the lower left as you're approaching the split for 110 on US 54 westbound. You'll see signs for it here. You'll also see signs for 110 at its northbound beginning, or mile 0, as you can see by the post on the left. You have a 110 sign here, but you won't see any 110 route markers along its length. Again, this is probably because of its short length. It's less than a mile altogether. Gentlemen, any thoughts on that, or you guys good?
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's not the greatest signed interstate. You know, one thing that's just fun when you drive around down here, especially back on I-10, is just the views of Mexico. You know, you come down from New Mexico and come around the bend there, and suddenly see all these radio towers and things on the hills, and it's a whole different world down there, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, like I really thought the views of the landscape over in Mexico were outstanding from the Border West Expressway. There's a high viaduct there as you're passing downtown, and you get this great view of the landscape south of the border up there.
I find it interesting that if you're going to approach 110 from the north, if you come down the US 54 freeway, you will not be able to clinch 110 because the ramps from I-10 don't merge in until after 54 splits. So, in fact, those roadways stay completely separate. 110 does not go to Loop 375. It does go to the border. Northbound, there is a brief merge, but southbound, it's completely separate. And there is actually no access, no direct access from I-10 to US 54 heading south at that point.
Right, yeah. So you're saying that the ramps to, like, the only part of it that's actually 110 are the ramps to I-10? Is that right?
No, what I'm saying is US 54 southbound remains completely separate from I-110. Northbound, there is a brief interaction before 110 ends. But some people think that 110 follows 54. Some people think it ends at US 62, and no, it goes to the border.
Okay.
It's
Right,
more just dispelling some myths.
Right, yeah. So I don't... Yeah, because I know there's some confusion right now because they also have ramps closed on I-10 right now, approaching... like the ramps to 110 are shut because they're doing some sort of construction right now. But so that makes things a little weird through there anyway. Yeah, everything I read again indicates that 110 is the shortest signed interstate in America, and that's consistent with what you guys have seen, right?
Yeah, so it's my understanding that 110 had no signs until 10 to 15 years ago, so it's likely that some sources that advertise it are reflective of the fact that if that makes any sense.
It's not. Yeah, you kind of broke up there, but you're saying it wasn't signed until somewhat recently?
Yeah. So it's my understanding that there were no 110 shields until 10 or 15 years ago, and so some of those sources that say 375 is signed and shorter may or may not reflect the fact that they know that 110 is now signed to some effect. I don't think before Texas started posting signs with Clearview, I don't think that 110 was signed at all. Is at least my understanding.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
What's the HC sign in the
Hazardous cargo loop.
Yeah. So hazardous materials or whatnot, vehicles carrying those are required to follow those highways with those signs. All right. So that's 110. Now let's spend a few minutes dissecting 375 because we got a lot to get into here. The 375 Beltway is a unified designation for a highway that has many different and diverse sections. So let's focus on the three most interesting ones in this slide. So we have Trans Mountain Drive, which traverses the Franklin Mountains north of El Paso. It was built originally in the early 60s, but was upgraded to expressway grade in the mid-2010s. We also have the Chavez Border Highway, built in the late 60s, which literally runs along the border, hence its name. And we also have the Border West Expressway, which was completed in October 2019. It was built as a toll road to connect downtown El Paso with I-10 to the west of town. And as you can tell by the breakdown, this is a single designation. Parts of it are free to use. Parts of it are going to be tolled. Actually, at the time that I drove this in February, the tolls had not yet gone into effect. So I paid $0.00 for the pleasure of driving the Border West corridor. And also because of its odd route, I mentioned that 375 is a beltway, which I guess for a lot of people would imply that it's a bypass for its entire length, but it really should be stressed that certainly the southern half of the loop behaves more like a through traffic corridor, and the northern half of the loop is more like a bypass. It is not entirely meant as a bypass highway for its entire length. You will get a lot of local and through traffic on the southern half of the loop, especially now that the Border West corridor is open. I think that sounds about right, right? Because if we go back to the map here, we have 10 coming in from the southeast, and we have it coming in from the north. And we have 10 going through town like this. Now, the Border West corridor gives us a second highway through town, basically. A second continuous highway that does something like this. So in effect, what you have now is two traffic corridors here that run east-west through town, and in that sense, the 375 loop south of I-10 behaves as a second major highway. It's not really a bypass, it's another highway to feed traffic from the burbs into downtown. Does that logic make sense to you guys?
Don't look to us.
Yeah, no, I mean that sounds accurate. Yep.
I was taking a look back at my photos from several years ago, and I drove 375, which was before they twinned it through the mountain range. And at that time, there was a 2-lane section coming down the west side of the mountain, and then a 4-lane boulevard coming into I-10, which you could sort of see on the map. Go straight in. And at the time, I said, well, I figured they would take the divided highway and just tie it into the 4-lane boulevard. And as it turns out, they've completely done a Texas-style freeway. They've done with overpasses and frontage roads the whole way in, and then a nice grid-separated interchange, at least to head back towards El Paso again. So they didn't even make full use of the stubs that I had found at that point. They just blew everything out in the valley there.
Wow.
So I'll be interested to see that. I have not seen that myself.
Yeah, I would think that the widening that they did over the mountains was quite a challenge. As we look at the pictures here, this is the Trans Mountain Drive section. It is capped off by the 1 mile elevation mark that it reaches at its summit, and you have amazing views on both sides of the mountain in all directions. It's really like, if I had to pick a favorite highway of mine in the El Paso area, it would definitely be 375 as a whole. And we'll see this as we go, as we look at the video later, and also we're going to do a virtual tour on this next week. But 375 is quite a roller coaster ride in terms of the scenery that you get, the traffic you get, and really just the overall variance in terrain and cityscapes and landscapes. I mean, it's got everything that you could possibly want crammed into about a 50-mile drive. So I really enjoyed being able to document this road. Now, as we look at these pictures of the border highway, which is now, we're on the Mexican border, right? And this picture on the right, we can see here's the wall right here. And the picture in the upper left, we have the wall on the far left side here. What highways did I use to approach and depart? I came in off of I-10 and I was coming from the west, so I was on 10 coming out of Tucson and Arizona and New Mexico out from that way. So I just did, I-10 is through El Paso as part of that larger documentation. One thing I need to point out to you guys, you'll notice there are, at intervals, sign gantries along the border highway that are empty. They don't have signs on them anymore. And the reason for that is that up until, I believe, 2017, and correct me if I got the date wrong on that, you had a setup where you had 2 lanes per direction, but then you had a third lane that was a toll lane on the border highway. And it was so unpopular with people that they discontinued the tolling of that section of the border highway. Corco, that's about right? That they put it in and then they didn't like it and then they got rid of it. But then that's my understanding. I don't know the exact dates of when that happened, but that sounds correct. Yeah.
August of 2017.
So that's when they removed it? I think so. Yeah. So yeah, they took down the signage, they took down, everything else that would lead you to believe it was a toll road, but they left all the gantries up. So every once in a while you'll drive this highway and you'll see a blank overhead gantry with nothing on it, and that's the reason. There used to be toll signage up here, and there was tolling equipment on some of these gantries also. And now we have some pictures from the Border West Expressway, which again opened to traffic a few months ago. You'll notice in the photo in the upper left, you've got a VMS that says toll deferral period. And why is that? Well, that's because the toll hadn't gone into effect yet. So you can see on the sign in the middle here, your toll for this passing under this gantry is exactly $0.00. And I think a part of why the toll deferral period was in place was because in the westbound direction, they had not yet completed orienting the last free exits in El Paso. So I think they wanted to make sure that everyone was on the same page as far as which exits were free and which exits would not be free before they did the full switchover. So yeah, it was a perfect time to drive it if you happen to be in the area. So fortunately, the timing worked out pretty well for me. This is a cashless toll road, so you'll see that your options are available up here. You've got Texas Tag, which is the statewide toll tag system. I believe this T is the North Texas Turnpike Authority. Is that right? Yeah. Yes. You can. Guys, you can chime in if you want.
I'm not sure if there's a separate Turnpike Authority. I think it's just run through the DOT. But yeah, that's the idea. Or yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's that option, and then there's the standard pay-by-mail option, which is a much higher rate. I'm trying to get my guys on Skype to be a little more talkative. That's all I'm doing.
I'm looking this up because apparently they've created a separate authority called the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority just to run this toll roads. So I'm trying to see if they have a logo, what's up with that, but it appears that that's a partnership with the DOT.
Gotcha. Yeah, but I know over in like Houston and Dallas, there's separate authorities for some of those toll roads. But yeah, I wasn't sure about the El Paso toll roads there. So let's.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that big T is.
Well, yeah, in Houston you have Easy Tag, which is only permitted for use in Harris County. They don't let you use it elsewhere in the state.
Yeah, it is toll tag from NTTA. So yes, that is the Circle T.
Yeah, that's
and the other one.
I don't know, that's weird. Like NTTA is usable on this, but you couldn't use a Harris County transponder on this. That's a little weird.
It may have to do with
that is
And I was going to say, it may have to do with the interoperability of those tags, that depending on the technology used, these may have been easy to link, and Harris County less so.
Is there any other state in the country that has multiple tags but no interoperability? I've never heard of that before.
Florida.
Or, Florida? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, Florida's a mishmash of garbage.
And the toll roads.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I live like 500 miles from a toll road, so I don't have to worry about this too much.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't really know what a toll road is out in Idaho.
No, I pull out my quarters and then I'm confused when there's a tag thing, and then I just hope I don't get a ticket. But don't worry about it too much. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, so that's a brief overview of the 375 corridor. Let's talk quickly about a couple other major freeways here in the area. So we have the Patriot Freeway, which is the northeastbound beginning of US 54. It eventually takes you, I think, into Illinois before it ends. I think it's signed as east-west, but because it runs predominantly north-south through the El Paso area, it's basically the area's de facto north-south freeway.
I know it's signed north-south in New Mexico. Check real quick what we got here.
Yeah, I'm looking at Texas.
It is east-west in Texas, but I believe it is north-south when you get into New Mexico, at least to start.
Yeah, definitely in New Mexico it is, but yeah, I don't know about Texas so much.
Yeah, I'm seeing that you are correct, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of this freeway's major purposes is to connect the downtown area with El Paso Airport, which is a few miles northeast of downtown. As you'll see in the next slide, the freeway does come to a sudden end near the north end of the metro area. A northeastern extension of the freeway has been proposed, but is currently on hold. For whatever reason, I'm not sure. I would imagine it's tied to funding of some sort. But these are some pretty typical views that you'd find along the Patriot. It's a pretty standard suburban freeway for the most part. And this photo in the upper left is what I was referring to before, how you have a freeway that suddenly comes to an end, and you have stubs in place for a future continuation to the northeast towards New Mexico. And in the photo on the lower right, we have the inbound freeway approaching downtown, approaching the interchange with I-10, and also this is the exchange point for I-110 and the connecting ramps to 375 down at the border highway. So we have a Patriot Freeway, so let's have a Liberty Expressway while we're at it. This is Spur 601, it's a state highway. This is an east-west connector that links the Patriot Freeway with the easternmost section of the 375 loop, well northeast of downtown El Paso. This is also one of the newer highways in the area. It was built about 10 years ago, and it really provides more seamless access between the major freeways in town and also military installations such as Fort Bliss, and also El Paso International Airport is located right off of this freeway as well. And despite its name, it is a freeway, at least as far east as 375. So this upper right, you see the the interchange with 375, which is actually a diverging diamond. 601 passes through the interchange on the lower level as the roadways split and then reassemble. And this is a pretty standard view on 601. It does get a lot of traffic, but it takes on more of a rural character the further east you go. And again, this freeway isn't that long in the first place, but it is the more rural of the freeways in the metro area. All right, so that's the overview. Guys, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I want to see some roads.
Well, I know you do, but, you know.
I'll add thoughts as I have them.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see some roads. I'm excited to revisit El Paso in this from the comfort of my recliner here. So let's jump on it.
All right, that's cool. Just a friendly reminder to everybody watching, but as I said, we'll have another presentation for you next Saturday. We're going to do a virtual tour double header. Each of these highways we're going to do takes about an hour to traverse, so under a normal program, we should be able to get them both in. So we'll revisit El Paso next week, and we'll revisit Vegas next week, and tie a nice bow around both of them before we move on to a different part of the Southwest on April 18th. All right? So that is where we're headed. Okay, so I picked out... This is a nice picture, right? Why don't we just take a second to admire this before we start the video? I think that's a good idea. We need a 1 or 2 minute interlude here.
Can cue some Marty Robbins. We can sing about Felina and Rose's Cantina and the West Texas town of El Paso.
I'm just looking at the billboard, and I've just got the Cars for Kids jingle.
The singing, but there we go.
877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today. I will not play the jingle to spare you guys. Alright, so these are all videos, as I said, that were filmed in early February, and they are actually... If you watched the tutorial that I did a couple weeks ago, you actually saw me schedule all these videos for YouTube. So these videos will go live, today is April 4th, so in the next month and a half, you'll get all the El Paso footage that you're seeing tonight. So I think probably the best place to start would be Interstate 10, which, again, is really one of the main streets of the El Paso metro area. So let's spend a little bit of time going over what we just did in the slideshow.
Here we go.
There we go. This is what you really came for.
So traffic here is terrible. Yes, you notice there's only 2 lanes, and on either side of El Paso, I-10 is very quickly only 2 lanes. It's 3+ through the metro area, more or less, but yeah, it could definitely use widening from the New Mexico border on in for some distance.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is that 10 in New Mexico coming down from Las Cruces, it's 3 lanes per direction, and then you hit the Texas border and it narrows down to 2, and then it doesn't become 3 again until we're well into Texas, like in the next mile or so we finally gain a lane. But that area, that stretch of like 10 or so miles is it's easy to see how that's a choke point, and that goes obviously in both directions.
Trying to see. So where are we at now? We are at the. Okay, so we're at the 85 split. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say I don't know. So it used to be US 85. Fascinatingly, was it's not signed at all in New Mexico, but as soon as you cross the state line into Texas on I-10, you start to see US 85 shields where it's concurrent there. I don't know if that's still the case or if that's stopped in recent years. I haven't been to El Paso in a little bit, but that was my recollection.
There was an 85 right there on the right.
Yeah, well, that's where it splits off as its own thing. But I was just curious before up by the state line, but.
Yeah, we're about. This is exit 13, so we're quite a bit from the state line at this point. But this is where the Border West Expressway begins, off to the right. And we will get to see this stretch in a little while, but this is where all the new construction is over on the right here.
Yeah, it's well, one thing I find fun, and I haven't seen it yet, is when you drive through El Paso, you see all these Mexican market cars that you can't buy in the United States will pop up. You'll see little random Korean or Chinese cars or little Chevys that you can't buy in the States. I haven't seen any in the 30 seconds we've been watching, but I bet some pop up as we go through this.
Oh, you mean like cars that came over from Mexico and are just hanging out?
Exactly. But unique vehicles that you can't buy in the States. Newer Renaults or Seats or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember if I saw anything like that. And on my trip, I was at the border in 4 different spots. It was in the El Paso area, and then a spot in Arizona, and a couple spots in California. And I didn't remember seeing anything that was eye-popping as far as cars that I've never seen before. But you're right. Like,
okay. Yep.
You're right. There's definitely stuff like that out there. I don't know what this project is here. I don't know if this is a new.
Yeah.
I guess.
No, when I used to live in Tucson, you would see them daily. But yeah. There we go.
All right.
Yeah, I like this.
Isn't the terrain amazing in this area?
It sure is, and right as you come around the bend here, and in a couple miles, or I think this might be the big bend here, where you see you're looking out at Juarez there in the distance, and you start to see the mountains just filled with radio towers. And you've got these big, beautiful and unusual sort of desert terrain, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of Hawaii, believe it or not, because Oahu has terrain that looks a lot like this as well. And of course, Honolulu is a major metropolitan area of 1 million people as well. So, believe it or not, there are quite a bit of similarities between those two. And maybe that explains why I like El Paso so much. Now, the interstates in this part of Texas don't have an H prefix, but still, though, you can drive the interstate highway in a paradise like Honolulu. And it really doesn't feel that much different than driving the interstates here in West Texas.
So what I'm seeing for that construction...
I know.
Yes.
All right. What I'm seeing for the construction is the north side ramps from Executive Center Boulevard at exit 16 have been considerably extended north, which looks like they're going to tie that in with a cross street and have some sort of development there, basically just extending the exurvia that much further out from the city.
Yeah. Yeah, because clearly there's not enough traffic already on that 4-lane section of 10. By the way, there's the Border West Expressway on the right on an elevated structure as we make the left turn here to pass through downtown El Paso. There's a lot happening in this stretch of highway. And again, I'd like to take a second to thank those of you in the live chat who are watching. You guys are doing a great job keeping everybody entertained, keeping us entertained. And we really want to thank you guys for watching tonight. And again, if you guys have observations from the videos that you're going to watch in the next hour, feel free to drop them in the chat, and one of us will answer you. Even if it's the guy from Idaho.
I can make things up as well as anybody.
We want to hear more of your charming Canadian accent.
Well, I mean, it's. Here's the thing: is that this is really far from Canada, right? Like this is the opposite of Canada. And I had the good fortune of living down in the Southwest for a few years, several years ago, and made it to El Paso, a few times. But I mean, it is a whole other world down there, and I love it. I want to get back. My goal in the next couple of years is to get back a couple times to El Paso. But I mean, it is just a beautiful and unusual community, and somewhere that really has a lot of life going on. We just passed downtown, and it probably goes without saying that some of the best Mexican food in the world we just drove by, right? And it is. This is a cool city. It is a fun place to go visit. I can't recommend it enough. And I like go to El Paso. Like, I'm not joking. Even beyond the roads are cool. But just this is a place to go hang out and explore. Like, it's a fun place to go walk around for a couple of days.
Yeah, I agree. Like, after my experience out there, I definitely recommend it to anybody who hasn't been there or anybody who's looking for an excuse to go back. It definitely. It's definitely worth spending some time out that way. I'll say that. I think probably the thing.
For sure. Did you, when you were on your trip?
Go ahead.
Or have either of you guys made it down to Big Bend National Park on your trips? Sorry.
I went at a later time, so I've been.
No, I didn't go there. No.
Yeah, I haven't been either, but that's definitely on my list to check out.
That is one
very near future.
Yeah, that is one where I would go back and get have the opportunity to camp there and spend a couple of days in Big Bend. I couldn't recommend enough. And if you're going to be in El Paso, that's not a terribly far additional drive. Plus, you get to walk into Mexico from there.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that we're now on 10 westbound, by the way, and this is the stack with 375 southeast of town, what we're passing through right now. But the thing that I wanted to mention real quick, like, I only had like half a day to spend in El Paso, so all of the footage that you're seeing was filmed on the same day, and I started my day in New Mexico and I ended my day in New Mexico. So really, El Paso was kind of like a place that I was just passing through. But in retrospect, when I think about it, I wish I had allocated a lot more time to just, explore the area, because it looks like a fascinating place. I had to get back to Arizona. I was in a hurry to get back to Arizona so I could bang my head against the wall driving the freeways around Phoenix again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the whole borderlands, really, Tucson to El Paso, the whole corridor is just, it's a fascinating area. If you get down to Sierra Vista, Arizona, and down to Nogales like you did, it's there's a lot to see in those areas. And even some of the rural towns, Lordsburg and Deming up in New Mexico. Southern New Mexico is highly underrated. I suggest everybody goes there too. It's sort of like the Rust Belt mixed with the desert, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
And it's cool. Yep.
Yeah, Lordsburg definitely has that feel. I spent a night in Lordsburg, in fact. And that's a neat little town, isn't it? It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, out in the desert, and it's got this Cleveland feel to it. I don't know how to explain it.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, no, and do they still have the misspelled sign in Lordsburg for Douglas?
No, that got changed.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
It's not wrong anymore. So again, on 10 westbound, as we passed 375 a short time ago, we're traversing your standard American suburban sprawl out this way. But again, I point out the terrain in the distance. The Franklin Mountains are straight ahead. This isn't the kind of views that you would see in most American cities, that's for sure. Corco, we've got a couple of minutes here. Do you want to take this opportunity to plug your website and all your ramblings?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I like to joke about we were all at some point teenagers browsing. Well, depending on how old we are, we were all at some point teenagers browsing. H.B. Oakins' website or Alps's website or whatever. And wonderful sort of 1990s era websites with photos, and so I decided I needed my own, and started with Corco Highways. About 13 years ago. That's corcohighways.org. I'm not advertising anything. It was and so I am not one of those 21st century people. This is old-fashioned pictures of road signs on highways, but I've had the good fortune to drive every state highway, or every mile of state highway in most western states at this point, working on California and Nevada right now, and have tried to put pictures of them up on the internet, right? I haven't done anything fancy with videos or anything like that. I've always thought about it, but you get older and you don't have time to do those sorts of things, so you sink it all into a website, but that's where you're at. So it's a wonderful thing. Certainly a passion of a labor of love, not of popularity or of money. And go check it out. I don't know what else to say about it other than it's fairly straightforward. I've got over 100,000 pictures and 10,000 or so pages, and have dedicated probably way too much of my life to updating it. So that's that.
Well, you know why I like your site so much? It's because randomly you've managed to clinch Delaware out of all the other states that you've been to. And so I just want to take a moment to
back
applaud
in
you for clinching the state of my birth in the midst of doing all the other stuff out in the Mountain West states.
Yeah. So I was like, I regret it. I'll be honest with you. Clinching Delaware was fun, but I regret it because I drove Delaware in about 3 days. I think I did it slightly slower than Alps did, so I'm not going to claim I've done it faster than everybody else did. But I did it at a pretty good clip, and so I have driven every mile of state highway in Delaware. I can't tell you much about Delaware. And so that's the irony of it, right? Like
you actually saw all of it by doing that, though.
I've seen more of Delaware than most Delawareans, and I have very little concept of what it means to live in Delaware. And so I'd never been to Delaware before. I've never been since, and so that's where we are.
It sounds like you've got the exact picture of it, though. So you were successful.
Oh, maybe so.
Yeah, it's farmland and an occasional beach, and Then you get to Wilmington.
And then there's Wilmington, yeah.
Right. You know, I mean, I got the part south of the canal is very different than the slower, lower. I think it's mentioned in the comments, and then you get up into Wilmington and Brandywine country, and when I clinched Delaware, I didn't even spend the night in Delaware. Every night I spent was in Maryland. It just so happened that way. The timing wise, when I'd hit nightfall, I was in Maryland, and so. It was sort of ridiculous, and if I thought about going back to it with Rhode Island or other small New England states, and if I do it, I will double the amount of time to at least see something, right? And so no more blitzing states just for fun.
Yeah. Well, if you were to do a state like Rhode Island, there would be a lot more to see along the way too. Yeah, even though Rhode Island is smaller, there's still. It's not just farmland in Rhode Island. There's a lot of beautiful coastal stuff that you could see along the way.
Delaware.
It'd be wonderful.
Yes.
Delaware, I have looked for things to do in most of that state and have found very little unless you want to stay on the beach for a week. So it's not like Rhode Island where, as you say, it's much more interesting, many more sites and history there. Delaware, you're scrounging. So, yeah, Rhode Island is a fun state. Definitely worth taking several days.
Yep. So
That building looks a lot like a casino. I know it's not a casino because there's not casinos in El Paso, but that there is a casino, a big white building. But I don't know what the lag is like. We've probably already driven by it by the time I said that, but there we go.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, I think I made this point last week, but it feels really weird to be watching these videos right now. You know, keep in mind these were filmed in February, and then the month of March happened and everything got turned upside down with everything we're dealing with as a country. And so it just seems weird to see all this commerce and prosperity going on when now if you were to drive that same section of highway, there probably would be like 5 cars on the road.
Oh, for sure. It's I probably unethically went to Utah 3 weeks ago as kind of the first weekend when things were starting to pop up and people really started taking this seriously, and I was like, oh, I better get to Utah real quick, which hindsight's selfish. I don't recommend it. I regret it for anybody listening. That being said, and even at that point, though, life was so different, and that was just 3 weeks ago. About the same time you were here in El Paso, I was up in Morocco, and
Oh, that's right.
it didn't hit me that anything was happening until I got on the train to go back to the airport, and I had just a light cough, and I've had a light cough for like the last 3 months, which is the worst time in human history to have a light cough that just won't go away, and
Yeah.
And I'm talking to some guy on the subway. He's from America. He's getting on the same flight I am. And he hears me cough, and he's immediately like, I better get a mask when I get to the airport. And I was like, oh, crap. And so, it is incredible. And now this is what the roads look like right here.
Yeah, pretty much, right? This is the This is the start of 601 westbound, leaving the base. But like all this week when I've been driving around, like up in the Hudson Valley, it's been empty. Like New York City is, like you never have seen traffic that light in the city. It's kind of freaky, I'm not gonna lie. Now I know that in Boise there were like 5 cars on the road to begin with, so the drop from 5 to 3 isn't that much. But when you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of cars, and then you get a small fraction of that on the other end of it, it's hard not to see that and be blown away by it.
Oh no, I can tell you in Boise, and not to joke too much, but we are in the process right now of turning off our school zone flashers, right? And so that's the big concern right now is, oh my God, we've got these school zone flashers going when there's no school in session, so cars are having to slow down to 20 miles an hour for no reason. And so we're taking care of our traffic situation now by getting those school zone flashers turned off, and it's kind of ridiculous, but that's our focus is. But no, even in Boise, we can tell the difference. It normally takes me 12 minutes to get to work. A couple weeks ago, before I was sent into work from home status, I was down to like 6. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yep.
I set an all-time record for my commute home 2 weeks ago. It was 9.5 minutes from the office, which I'm not sure is at all legal in any way, but I couldn't even do that on a Sunday morning typically.
I mean, you were in New Jersey, though, so everything's legal, is my understanding from my limited time in New Jersey.
Well, anything's legal that's not enforced if you want to go that route, but just going with the flow of traffic, when it's that light and not enforced because everybody's staying indoors, interesting things happen.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue if you're going with the flow of traffic, you're driving legally. There's probably some lawyer watching this right now with 33 people watching that will counter me on that, but that's legal advice from Idaho. Is if everybody else is doing it, you're good.
I think I can counter that fairly easily without being a lawyer.
Well, I mean, let's not. I mean, you can throw a statute book at me or whatever, but who cares? We're all libertarians, right? Just do your thing and make sure you have a gun with you and you're good to go. That's a joke, and I don't want to go down that road, so sorry.
Yeah, I'm from a state where that's not allowed to even be talked about. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, we pretend that we're pretty tough out here in Idaho. This is the old West until things get serious, in which case we're pretty timid. But that's how that goes.
So I've noticed here the exit numbers are quite a bit higher than one might expect. So
Yes.
Is there some plan to take this highway? I'm not even sure how it gets another 20 miles from its end, but what's the deal there?
I have not been able to find anything that either suggests there's a western extension on the books or that even these exit numbers are related to US 54 exit numbers. So I can't really explain why these numbers are doing what they're doing. You're right. Under normal convention, we should be in the single digits with these exit numbers, but like the exit numbers for 601 don't pick up where 54 left off either. So they're kind of doing their own thing, and you would think that, yeah, there should be 20 more miles to the west or whatever, but that doesn't appear to have ever been the case.
Now, I know in Texas, state highways are mile posted, and for a west-east highway, it would be mile posted from the extreme west point of the state in this case. So if I do some quick measurement here, I'm wondering if, oh, that's coming in kilometers, so I don't think that's the right answer.
40 something.
Yeah, no, it should be, it looks like it actually is 20 kilometers from the border to exit 20, but I don't think, I would be very surprised if this highway was kilometer posted.
I mean, you may have just uncovered a conspiracy.
Yeah, it's not kilometer
Maybe.
posted. I know that.
No, that's definitely mile posted. That is definitely the case.
Yeah. But yeah, like the exit numbers don't really make any sense.
Could they be an extension of Texas 20? Which is to say, no, never mind. That doesn't make any sense. But
Oh, you know what?
theoretically,
though?
if you follow the hidden corridor over the mountains and then up 20 up to the state line, what do you get?
No, I found something else, which is the US 54 freeway also ends at exit 20 on the south end. So El Paso's just got a thing for exit 20s, it appears.
Right, yeah. US 54 begins at exit 20. And there's no explanation that I could find for that either. So I don't know why they
hold
feel
on.
that you're just going to start at
I think
exit
Alps is
20.
on to something.
Huh?
I said I think Alps is on to something. If you theoretically ran a Spur 601 over the mountains to I-10 and then went to the state line, you would have 20 miles. Which
That's
ties
not what I
into
said.
Texas's...
That's,
Well, no, what you said was that mileposts in Texas on state highways come from the state line. Right?
Yeah, originally. Yeah.
And so maybe if you built the freeway over to the 10, or I-10, my apologies, at some point, you would end up with the thing. I don't know if that's right, but it's
That doesn't sound, that's not the way Texas tends to do things. And then US 54 really has there's nothing there that would indicate that should start at exit 20.
No.
But that,
No, probably not.
At least we found another example of the same phenomenon here. So for whatever reason the one does, I'm sure they both do the same.
yeah, I mean, there's got to be some reason why the number 20 is significant. I'm just not sure. Because at this point, as we merge in with 54, we're at exit 24. So if the exit numbers were going to pick up where 54 left off, you would start on 601 at exit 24, but that's not what happens.
Another oddity, the exit for loop 375 at US 54 is exit 21. And you're not going to find, again, 21 miles in there at all, no matter how you try to measure this. It's not 20 miles to the border. It's not 20 miles along I-10 to the border. It's exit 21. There's for some reason everything in El Paso is numbered strangely.
Yeah, you don't have 20 miles to the border, you might have 20 feet to the border. But yeah, this is what I was saying earlier, that US 54 splits for 601 at exit 24. And then we're on 54 now heading northbound out of El Paso. But yeah, there's got to be some reason why Texas DOT loves the number 20 for this.
And when they extended 375, the last exit became 11.
Yeah.
So you can't measure 11 miles from there to anything.
No. Because on I-10, I think that's
Exit 6.
6, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not it. And I thought that maybe, but there isn't 11 miles between the two ends of 375, so that doesn't work.
Oh.
So where are you getting 11 from in that case? So I don't know. Yeah, like the exit numbers in El Paso don't really make a lot of sense outside of I-10.
And 110.
Well, 110s work because they don't have any.
No, it has there's some exit 1s in here. At least historically there were exit 1s. They may have unnumbered them at this point. I have
like US 62 or something?
Yeah, I have Bill Donovan's old photos on my website, and exit 1C on I-110 was for 10 West. So there was a 1A, 1B, 1C at some point.
Interesting. Well, Man, what a big sky! You know, that's what I love about the Southwest. It's how big the skies are. Clouds.
Speaking of that, I got to get to Montana one of these years.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I got to get to Idaho at some point.
Big sky country.
That's it.
Yeah, you know, Idaho is always here.
Yeah. No, I don't think you're going.
We're trying to keep
right?
people away right now, but yeah, we're here.
Is that your state slogan? We're here.
We're here. Well, I mean, our license plates say "famous potatoes" because we are. To be honest, if you live in Idaho, you are once you get residency here, you actually have to take an oath that you will not attempt to attract any more people to Idaho. We're one of the fastest growing states in the country, and there's a fear that people keep coming here because it's cheap to live and it's relatively nice and all that. But you are required to not advertise that to anybody. So I have not advertised that to anybody in this situation. Idaho's terrible for the record. Yeah, all we have are potatoes. Don't worry about anything else. It's just potatoes. Stay on 84. You'll see plenty of potatoes. You'll be very happy, and your expectations will be met. And that's the deal with Idaho. We very much have a complex about people thinking that Idaho is great. We're inferior. We're happy with that.
So that's all.
I second that. You're definitely inferior, and I am happy with that.
But that's also stemming from the fact that for whatever reason you don't want people to move there.
No. You buy stuff and then it gets expensive, and we Idahoans we're a poor people, right? And so you bring in your California dollars or your New York dollars, and it's like, oh man, suddenly this thing that used to be $100,000 is $300,000, and it's like, oh man, what's going on here? So that's the that's the deal.
Yeah.
We love our agriculture. You know, Valero's gone now, that gas station.
So again, we're on northbound 54 at this point, and as I mentioned in the slideshow, this is a pretty standard suburban freeway that is about to come to an end in another mile or so. But even with all the variants and all the unique features that El Paso has, you will still find a lot of your standard scenery, a lot of your standard freeway layouts and stuff like that in a place like this too. There's a cop with a radar gun on his motorcycle.
Nice.
Yeah. Sneaky bastard. Yeah, if you're still watching this video and have not been scared off by the presence of a Idaho resident in the Skype call, and you're enjoying what you're seeing here, hit the like button on the video. It'll make it easier for you to bookmark it and watch it back again in the future, so you can relive all the greatness that's going on in my home studio in the Hudson Valley right now.
I just want to comment on Mr. Wisconsin's comment here that Texas public safety is Nazi-like with their speeding. Texas is wonderful. Yes, they enforce speed limits, but the speed limits are reasonable, and that's the wonderful thing about driving in Texas is your 2-lane roads. The speed limit's generally 75. This is probably underposted a little bit at 60, so this is a bad example. But Texas speed limits are usually fair, right? And so you get pulled over if you speed by a little bit, but they're usually about as fast as you want to go anyway, within some reasonable gas mileage when I see somebody's arguing against it, but there we go.
I got pulled over and I got a warning for going 78 and a 75. That's a little on the ridiculous side.
But in any other state would the speed limit on that road have been 75?
It was a 4-lane divided highway with no traffic lights, so conceivably a couple other states could have done that.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, if he was in Connecticut, the speed limit would have been 45.
And
Right.
equally enforced.
Yeah. All right. So we'll show you the westbound or southbound 54 in this video, which will then transition onto I-110. But yeah, like the speed limits in Texas are much higher than in most other states, right? Because you got your 2-lane rural roads at 75, which I didn't even know was a thing until I was in Texas. The freeways are generously posted. Like, even your urban freeways can be as high as 65. You know, for the most part, you know, the speed limits are definitely fair, and they give you plenty of leeway as far as enforcement goes. At least that's been my experience with it.
Yeah. I mean, as Mr. Scott Austin just mentioned, you know, Montana's the other one, and Texas applies a little bit more logic than Montana, which is great. You know, I lived in Montana for a few years too, and they just put a 70-mile-an-hour sign on everything with 2 lanes. You actually, you get to the top of the Beartooth Highway near Yellowstone National Park. Super windy road. You really can't go more than like 45. The speed limit's 70. It's amazing, but that's a whole other that's a whole other ball of wax.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. And that's because there they cannot change speed limits without a very significant investment in engineering studies, but and then have to stick with whatever the state dictates the speed limit will be. But that's another. And Texas is kind of the same way. You know, the legislature dictates that it's going to be 75, and then they have to overcome some threshold to get the speed limit reduced. I think it's a little bit less in Texas than in Montana, but it's still there. Yeah.
So as I noted before, we are not at this point on Interstate 110. The ramps you see coming into the right, either existing or proposed, and I guess in this case they actually aren't even there at all, so they've ripped up the entirety of I-110 southbound. There is no 110 at all right now in this video, which is interesting. But technically you're not on Interstate 110 until you take this exit here.
So if I took this ramp, that doesn't count as clinching it?
No, you would have to come back all the way to clinch it.
Yeah.
So those ramps up from coming down from I-10 that were under construction at that point are the 110 main line.
Well, I could use an excuse to come back to El Paso at some point. And then just as quickly as it begins, it ends.
What annoyed me about this exit, about this U-turn here, is you cannot get to the US 62 exit.
Situation where I haven't tried to clinch this interstate. Can you get up to the? I guess with the bridge, you can't get up the border perfectly, but
Yeah, so your last legal U-turn before going through customs is right here, before you reach the border.
perfect. Okay.
Yeah, but in the northbound direction, after you make the U-turn and start heading back the other way, there's a mile 0 marker on your left. That was what was in that one picture. So I'm assuming that's where the interstate officially starts, is at the mile 0.
That's a fair assessment.
I mean, I'm kind of a novice as far as roads go, but, you know, that's my 2 cents anyway.
I mean, I would agree that counts as a clinch for at least from the southern terminus. I don't know about the northern part, what Alps was talking about, but
yeah.
No, I'm fairly sure that is the southern terminus, and so coming back, because you can't get to the US 62 exit, You have to come all the way back up 110. I don't know where, Dan. Do you remember where you went from there, north, east, or west? But you're basically all the way up to the I-10 interchange at that point. So basically, you clinched I-110 just by virtue of having a U-turn there.
Yeah, because I think what I ended up doing was doing 110 onto 54 north,
That counts.
which counts, right? Because you don't have a separate roadway for 110 going northbound.
Yeah, that's it. You're good.
Yeah. All right. I'm glad we got that sorted out. Now, I'm going to show you 3 distinct sections of 375 around El Paso, and these are the same sections that I outlined in the slideshow. So leading off, we're going to have Trans Mountain Drive, up and over the Franklin Mountains, up and over the mile-high elevation mark. And this is going to be in the eastbound direction. And this ain't a bad view here as we round the corner here and start our upward ascent. Do you guys know what the base elevation is of El Paso? Above sea level? Isn't it like 1,000 feet or something? Because I'm trying to remember what the net.
No, I
gain in
think
elevation is.
quite a bit higher. I think it's like 3,000 somewhere in there. But we can figure this out on Google real quick. Because like the lowest point in New Mexico is like 4,000 feet, and I know it's downhill from there, and that may not be. The good people at Google say 3,740 is the elevation of El Paso.
Was it really that high? Okay. Yeah, because like you'll pass the 1 mile mark as we go up and over this pass. So I was trying to figure out like what the net change in elevation is. It feels like it's a lot more than that, but I don't know if it's only 3,700. Then you're really not. This really isn't as big an uphill climb as you'd think. Because by contrast, in Honolulu, you obviously start at sea level, and the highest peaks on Oahu are about 3,000 feet, 3,500 or so. So, I guess it's a comparable. It's not, well, it's a little different. Because H3 you're starting at sea level, up here you're starting at closer to 4,000. So I suppose the net change in elevation on H3 and 375 would be roughly the same.
I noticed on the overpass bridge, 375 is designed to be widened to 3 lanes each way at some point, which I gather is based on additional suburban development in the foothills.
Yeah, that makes sense. They poured a ton of money into this road 10 years ago to bring it up to Expressway standard. And I'm sure they left some room on the table to do more stuff in the future if they wanted to.
Definitely wasn't 10 years. Might have been less than 9, but when I was there was no hint of anything going on.
Well, yeah, like within the last decade, they definitely did all this. I think it was finished in 2014.
Yeah, man, that's a fairly steep grade. That's interesting. If we don't, this only gets up to 5,000. Is that what?
Yeah, at the summit there's a 5280 sign.
Also, we just passed a Chevy Tornado. There's a good Mexican car before that semi truck, but well.
A Chevy Tornado. That's a first for me.
It's like a modern day El Camino if the El Camino were based on a Chevette instead of a Caprice.
Uh-huh.
That's probably needlessly technical for. There we go.
Yeah, and these scenes that we're gonna see on 375 are in the inner loop direction. When we do the virtual tour next week, we'll drive the entire length of the 375 loop in the outer loop direction. So you will not see the same stuff twice. I guess that's my point.
This is a great opportunity to have a camera that swivels because the view to the right there is amazing, and hopefully the weather was cooperative with your return trip, and we'll find out.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely as we start downhill here, as we reach the summit at the mile-high elevation, you will see some pretty neat views go in this direction as well. So, Steve, none of this was a 2-lane road, you said, when you were last through here?
So my page on this said the western coming down from the mountain was 2 lanes, and so I think by the time you get to that, the lookout point on the top of the hill, it was 4 lanes at that point. I definitely have. Yeah, I see construction of the I-10 interchange here. I see. I've got to get down to the end here, but yeah, there was a long straightaway for what was just a boulevard at that point, not yet a freeway, and then when it started going up the hill, it was just 2 lanes. And at the summit, it definitely was 4 lanes beyond the summit. I don't have a look back from there. Oh, I take that back. It went from 4 to 2. If you look at my page, you'll see it went from 4 to 2, right as it curved into the hill. So I can I'll drop a little link for some 9-year-old photo action here.
Okay. We have our traditional runaway truck ramp on the right. Which I don't know how that's going to stop a truck. That doesn't look very substantial. You're just going to fly right off the cliff if you go that way. This is what I meant earlier with the panoramic view. Yeah, this is pretty impressive. It's not as impressive as some of the views we saw on I-17, but this is up there. So when we reach the bottom of this winding grade here, we'll reach an interchange with US 54. And this section of 375 comes to an end. Now, of course, all the sections are continuous with each other, but many of the sections of 375 have their own distinct design and appearance. So as this Trans Mountain Drive section ends, the section beyond that takes on a much different feel.
This looks like a volleyball interchange between 2 freeways.
I think it might be. Yeah.
Something Texas is fond of. Before they build out a full stack, they'll just use the frontage roads for everything.
Hmm. All right. So that's Trans Mountain Drive. Now let's check out the Chavez Border Highway. Now remember, when we watched a video of I-10 West, we passed through the 375 interchange southeast of town. So we're going to do the same thing here, except, well, on 375. This is, again, a major symmetrical 4-level interchange with lots of flyovers for your viewing pleasure. It's an impressive interchange, that's for sure. Built the only way that Texans know how to build an interchange, and that is to build it big.
Is there still a giant Mexican flag kind of due southeast of here? There used to be back in the day. And the few times I passed through El Paso back a decade or so ago, down on the Mexican side they would fly just a gigantic flag. It was really beautiful, but huge.
This was on the Mexican side of the border, you said?
On the Mexican side, but very visible from both 10 and this part of 375.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, it may be gone. That was many years ago at this point, so... Yep.
This is an interesting section of highway because we'll be right up against the border wall, and then obviously the Rio Grande is right there also. Yeah, so for those of you who are keeping score, we're still on the inner loop lanes of 375, but we're now pointed in the southwest direction. And then the highway is going to make a sharp turn about 90 degrees to head back towards the northwest. And that's where we'll pick up the international border at that point. Corco, I'm assuming that I-84 is the busiest highway in the state of Idaho. Is that right?
That is right. Yeah. I mean, and so through Boise, Napa, Caldwell, so the populated part of southwest Idaho, which is going to hit 1 million people here pretty soon. It's at least 6 lanes now for the whole length. There are rumors of eventually building a southerly bypass to I-84. I don't know if that's going to happen in my lifetime, but it's always under consideration. And out there it's just open desert, and there's a road with some right of way preserved. So that's possible, but that's where we are. I-90 is busy, probably the second busiest, but not nearly as busy as 84 through the Boise area, and then and even going out towards Salt Lake and Twin Falls and Burley and that area. That's all quite busy. Even when I was out there a few weeks ago, it was still a pretty slammed freeway, even with truck traffic. So yeah, I mean, It's getting there. Boise's kind of following the Tucson model with freeways, right? Which is just don't build any and kind of keep everybody on surface streets, and so and so it's getting pretty busy, but that's how that goes.
Yeah. So I know in Tucson they've been flirting with the idea of building a bypass, but they don't seem to be anywhere close to doing that anytime soon.
That's because Loop 404 is not found.
That is true.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Loop 404.
No, but I lived in Tucson for a couple of years when I was in grad school, and I commuted from about 8 or 9 miles from campus. So I had to do the slog on surface streets every day, and it wasn't too bad. You find the road that works best for you. You don't take the major road necessarily. You have to experiment a lot with which section line road is the best. But once you figure it out, it's not that much worse than being stuck on a busy freeway. So it's I don't know that there's at least as of several years ago, I don't know if there's a need for Tucson to go crazy with building freeways, as nice as it might be.
Yeah, because I think one of the schemes for a Tucson bypass was to incorporate I-11 into that. And we'll talk more about I-11 when we talk about Phoenix next month, but there are all sorts of schemes for how we're going to get I-11 from the Phoenix area down to the Mexican border that are interesting in themselves.
Oh yeah, it's amazing that those, they haven't changed. I lived down there and from 2010 to 2012 or so, and they have made zero progress on narrowing down like alignment alternatives in that decade, and so yeah, the sky's the limit as far as I-11 in southern Arizona. It's that'll be an interesting conversation.
So we have the border wall on the left, and we're driving in the left lane of the westbound 375, which up until 2017 was a toll lane. Okay, we've got El Paso sprawl on the right.
I'm noticing a lot of exit signs are improperly designed. So first of all, I'm seeing things left justified that have no business being left justified. And secondly, all the exit signs are mounted in the median when it's the right lane that has the exit. So they should all be on the right side of the road. So between those two things, this is a very unique set of signs. Certainly wasn't like this when I was out there.
Yeah, these are all new signs within the last few years. Yeah. They probably were all put up around the time when the toll lane concept came along, and then when the toll lane was taken out, they just left all the signs, all the infrastructure was already in place, so they just left all the remaining signs.
Did they put the 3/4 mile signs up on the old toll sign gantries? Is that why they're all on the left? It makes you wonder, because it's definitely not the standard way to do things.
Yeah.
And then the sign design, as I said, is also very wrong entirely. So.
Well, you've been seeing the blank overhead gantries every once in a while, right? And
right.
That's where they put all the toll signage. So I don't think the two are related. I think that when they designed the signage for this highway, whenever the toll lane concept was brought about, that's what they came up with for the design.
They put everything in the median, which is, definitely not correct. Because if you're looking for an exit and you need to know if it's on the left or right, if the sign's on the left, if you're not paying a whole lot of attention and you're just waiting for the exit, you see a sign on the left, your first thought is, I need to move to the left.
Yeah, because you're not going to make the connection necessarily that even though the exit tab is on the right, your exit's on the right, you're going to see that the sign's on the left, right?
You'll see the exit tab. I need to see another exit sign, because I was just looking at the sign design overall before. I didn't even catch if the exit tab was on the left or right of the sign, but we have one coming up here, so take a look at this.
Yeah. No, they are on the right. The sign construction is right. It's just that the gantry is in the median.
and the street name and the distance to the street is left justified, and all that's supposed to be centered. That just looks bizarre.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's a weird looking sign. That's
That's the fourth one I've seen, so it's a pattern.
yeah, yeah. Uh, it's almost like an old school California sign, but with a next number attached and not button copy. So it's really just terrible.
I noticed on the last gantry that and you can see it on the other side here. There's overhead arrow per lane signs. I haven't seen any of them on, but were those only used for the toll setup, or are those used now for management? Do you know anything about those?
Which ones do you mean? Like the lane controls?
Yeah. I see a lot of blank ones. I haven't seen them lit up.
I don't think they were lit up. They definitely are holdovers from the toll lane infrastructure.
Yeah. Okay.
But they may have just decided to leave them as is, in case they decide to activate them in the future or whatever.
Yeah. I know that so far with what I'll call the Tappan Z, because the arrows there are holdovers from that system, and a lot of those signs at this point are still up there.
Chime in real quick before we. Sorry to interrupt. I'll just chime in real quick before we drive by. We just passed the big X. It's actually in Juarez. It's the monument to the Mexican people down there in Juarez. And sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. People were asking about that.
Finish your point about the X. That's what we're looking at right now, right?
That was my entire point. So there we go.
What was it again?
It's across the border. It's in Juarez. It's across the border. It's in Juarez. It's a recently constructed monument it's just a monument to the Mexican people. It's sort of a show of solidarity between the border, but also Mexican sort of nationalist kind of monument. So, yep.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know what that was, so I'm glad you were here to tell us that. Okay. Steve, what were you saying about lane control before we?
I'm saying that up in our parts, the leftover signs from the Tappan Z bridge lane control are still mostly in place at this point.
Well, you're talking about. Well, you're talking about the ones on land, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those were left in place, but they fully plan on utilizing those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those. The configuration of the road in those areas isn't changing, so they're going to keep all that stuff in place. The only stuff that you'll see change is the old lane ends signage, because of course there was a reversible lane there. So
right.
You now have 4 lanes per direction. You don't have a reason to have lane ends signs anywhere anymore. But all the other overhead stuff, the lane control stuff there, should all still function whenever they decide to activate it, because they can't seem to figure out what the heck they want to do with it. But that's another lecture for another time. All right. Border West Expressway. So for a lot of you folks, this will be your first visit to this newest highway in El Paso that opened in October 2019. And what the hell was that? Who's messaging me on Skype? The highway opened in October of 2019 and was free to drive as of February when this video was taken. So, enjoy.
Well, I guess we must not quite be on the new part of the highway yet, given the pavement condition. It seems like there's a lot of alligator.
Yeah, you'll start to see some toll signage up ahead here.
Okay.
I don't remember where the actual switch over happens. I think it's after we go another mile or so. But this is still
Gotcha.
technically part of the border highway. Downtown El Paso can be seen on the right. Another nice view.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 62 was the old end of Loop 375, and possibly that's the end of Loop 375, and then Toll 375 branches off of it.
Yeah, they love to put their toll road signage up on this road, which is good to see. They're doing the best they can to tell people that in a mile we're switching over to a toll road. It's an interesting highway. It's built into a very tight space. You know, you got the rail yards on the left and you've got downtown on the right. You don't have a lot of room to work with here. But they did a pretty good job of making all this passable.
Ah, there we go.
Yep, so the toll road begins here, right across from downtown. And as I said a couple of times, the toll charge for this video was $0.00. And there you see we have a 375 toll sign on the right. Who was mentioning the agency that operates this road earlier? Was that you, Steve?
Yeah, that I found that it was a unique combined effort with TxDOT.
So was it like a P3?
I didn't get that impression from it.
Because like it's not. Texas Dot isn't in charge of maintaining this, right? Isn't it something else?
So the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority is a collaborative partner. Looking at them, they are a political subdivision of the state of Texas created by act of the El Paso City Council. So it is a public authority, not a private owner. But essentially El Paso created this agency, and together with TxDOT, they have built this. I don't know what the specific responsibilities are between them.
Okay. So it was basically a way that they could get this built in the first place, it sounds like.
At least that far, and I'm not sure what their continuing role is, but it looks like they manage the toll road at this point, so they have some function there.
Yeah. This is an interesting section here because you've got I-10 on the right, and we're here on an elevated structure, and then there's railroad yards beneath us. Because again, we're right up against the border here, so there's not a lot of space to work with. They were able to cram this highway into a pretty tight right-of-way in general. This is a fun drive, especially if you don't have to pay the toll.
Yeah, this is in US 85 would be just to the left of this, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I just saw an 85 sign up on the ramp up there.
Gotcha.
So as we round this curve, we have the mainline toll gantry, which again is not activated as of the date of this video, but it will be at some point. And tolls on this road are obviously going to vary. I get the feeling that it'll be run similar to how a hot lane operates, where you'll have a baseline toll that will vary depending on time of day and levels of traffic.
It's a bummer. So we're seeing signs for Sunland Park Drive. So from US 85, that's actually signed as New Mexico 273, but it looks like you can see the sign maybe out there on the left in the distance. But it looks like from 375 here, it's signed as I-10. So that's a bummer.
And Laura makes a good point that the Farm to Market Road 1966 is related to the year that UTEP won the national championship in basketball. And they weren't called UTEP at that time either. So that's pretty neat. Toll road.
I've got it connects to US 85.
That would be a very good reason.
And I thought I had a second comment. Apparently I was wrong about that. So I'll leave it at the one.
Yeah, the second comment is there is no second comment.
Capiche?
Uh-huh.
I did think it was interesting that it was signed, the UTEP exit was signed as UT El Paso instead of UTEP. I've never, I'm a Mountain West or WAC football fan. I've never heard the abbreviation UT El Paso before instead of UTEP. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, but maybe that's what they're using now down there.
Yeah, I've only ever heard UTEP, even out my way. So I don't know. Yeah. All right. So the Border West connects in with I-10 here, and that is the end of the new construction. And let me, before I end this video, let me rewind for a second. I want to see that UTEP sign again. Yeah, so this is what you were talking about, right? So yeah, that's interesting.
Sure it was whenever we get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Of course, the 1966 number is the year that the Texas Western college basketball team won the national championship. So thanks, guys, in the chat for pointing that out. I totally missed that. All right, you've seen the rest of this. So that's going to do it for this video. And that's going to do it for all the other videos I had for you tonight. And therefore, that's going to do it for tonight's presentation. Guys, any closing thoughts out of you folks before I wrap this up?
Just El Paso Tourism Board is not here, but go visit El Paso. It's a cool place to go. It's a beautiful city, and it's off the beaten path. It might be a little expensive to fly there, but it's worth it. So if you have a chance, get out that way, and yeah, thank you all.
Yeah, it was great having you, Corco, Steve. You guys were great. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your contributions.
I will point out El Paso is the 22nd largest city in the United States. It has surpassed Detroit, and it's catching up to, well, maybe it's not catching up to Boston, but it's moving up.
Yeah, so all these cities in the Mountain West, even the
Exciting.
ones that Corco doesn't want you to move to, they're growing quite a bit. But yeah, so thank you to my panel on Skype for chipping in. You guys did great. And thank you to all you guys in the live chat. You guys were awesome. Thank you for keeping it real. And so a quick word before we end the stream. We will be doing the next week of the coronavirus and the commute afternoon drive. You can expect that to resume on Monday. We'll do that Monday through Friday. Tomorrow, in the same time slot, 6 o'clock Eastern, Corco, you're still good with me interviewing you, right?
Yeah, I'm happy to have a couple beers and talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. Let's do it.
All right, so that'll be our entertainment for tomorrow. We're gonna get to know.
Warning: it's not all that entertaining, but okay.
Well, we'll do the best we can. We'll
Right.
I can't promise you'll enjoy it, but we're gonna try. But yeah, we're gonna sit down and have a chat with one of the major figures in the road enthusiast hobby, who was fortunate. We were glad to have him join us tonight for this. So you're gonna get to know the guy from Idaho who was in our live chat, and we'll do a little interview session for you guys, and we hope you'll enjoy that. So that'll be 6 o'clock Eastern tomorrow, so I'll put up the link to that as soon as I'm done here, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. So from all of us here in the beautiful Hudson Valley at Roadway Wiz HQ, thank you all again for joining us. And be sure to join us not just tomorrow or Monday through Friday, but every day as we navigate our way through our uncertain and quite interesting times. We'll do the best we can to keep you entertained along the way. So, thanks everyone. Have a good night, and we'll see you all again soon.